Hello everyone and welcome to EduTap. Today you are going to see 10 important MCQs from the subject of freedom movement and Indian Union which can probably be seen in the ESIC Deputy Director exam. This series has been going on for quite a while now, my friends. I have already discussed 19 such sessions where I have discussed 10 or 15 important MCQs related to the different micro topics of this particular subject of Indian freedom struggle. And today is the 20th such session. So, in all, we have discussed already more than 200 questions from the subject of Indian freedom struggle, and there is a very high chance that in the exam itself you will see a number of questions or a number of topics that we have already touched upon in this series. So, if you have not watched the earlier 19 videos, I would recommend that please go to the playlist and watch all those videos. A large number of questions, a large number of topics have already been discussed there, right? So, without any delay, let us start the today's videos. First of all, question number one is in front of you. Who of the following does not represent, be very careful, who of the following does not represent the nationalist critique of colonial economy? In the paper also, when you are going to attempt for the recruitment test of ESIC DD, be very careful that whenever you read the questions, give special attention to the words like does not, correct, incorrect, true or false. So many a times the question, the examiner, they want to play games with you. They want to ask for the incorrect statements instead of the correct statements. So be very careful and do not commit such silly mistakes. Do not read correct as incorrect or does not represent to does represent right. So these kinds of silly mistakes should not be there in the exam. So question is, who of the following does not represent the nationalist critique of the colonial economy? Option A is D.R. Bhandarkar, option B Dadabhai Nauroji, option C is R.C. Dutt, and option D is Sachidanand Sinha. There were many freedom fighters who were, very intellectual and moderate in their approach, and they criticized the British policies of draining the wealth out of our country, India. Right? They wrote several books or research papers, and they proved to the world, they showed the world how Indian wealth was being taken out from the country. Indian people, Indian masses were being impoverished at the cost of enriching the British coffers or enriching the British capitalists. So who of the following was not one among of them? Dadabhai Nauroji is very famously associated as an economic criticizer of the British policies. He came up with the book Poverty and Un-British Rule of India, a very famous book. In this book he explained how the Indian wealth was being exported out of the country. Then RC Dutt, very famously, he came up with the economic history of India, where he talked about how the Indian wealth, which was very high during the times of the Mughal Empire and subsequent kingdoms, it was being eroded out of the country. So was Sachidanand Sinha. He was again an economist as well as a politician who criticized the British policies related to economic decisions in the country. Dr. Bhandarkar here is the correct answer, my friends. Dr. Bhandarkar was one of the first in charge of the archaeological survey of India, and he was responsible for digging out and excavating the historical monuments and sculptures in our country. And he was not at all associated with the economic critique or nationalist critique of the colonial economy. He was not at all associated with the economic decisions. Okay, so correct answer here will be Dr. Bhandarkar. How to reach this correct answer? We have many a times in various questions itself, and in the notes also I have told you about Dadabhai Nauroji, RC Dutt, and Sachidanand Sinha, that these three people, they were very much active in the economic sphere. They were also very much active, and they were also active criticizers of the British policies related to the economic decisions. Okay, so correct answer here will be one that is not among the three, Dadabhai, RC Dutt, and Sachidanand Sinha. Out of that, Dr. Bhandarkar will be the correct answer. Next up, let us look at the question number 2. Who presided over the Congress session in 1905 which supported the Swadeshi boycott movement for Bengal? We know that the decision to partition Bengal into two different provinces was taken in 1903 and it was implemented in 1905. And Congress and its leaders, they decided to launch the Swadeshi and boycott movements to protest against the division of Bengal. This session was held in Calcutta in Banaras in 1905, and in this session decision was taken to launch the Swadeshi boycott movement. Question is, who was the leader of the particular session? Who was the president of the 1905 sessions? Option is Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai, C.R. Das, and Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Always remember this. Be very much careful. Gopal Krishna Gokhale is the person who was the leader of the Congress session, who was the president of the Congress session in 1905. And in this session, only the Swadeshi and boycott movement they were being launched. Okay, and after this session, the splits they became much more clearer among between the the extremists and the moderates. The divisions, the differences in their ideologies and their approaches, they became much more direct, much more visible after the 1905 session, which was led by Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Okay. Question number 3. What name was given to the headquarters of Gaur Paper in USA? The Gaur movement was one of the first revolutionary movements which arose out of India, and its headquarters they were based in India and also in United States of America. So this Gaur Paper, they also came up with this newspaper Gaur, which was published in USA, and nationalist articles, the propaganda for Indian freedom was being published in that newspaper. What was the name of the headquarter of the Gadar paper in USA? Options are Deshantar Ashram, option B Yugantar Ashram, option C Gadar Ashram, or option D Bharat Ashram. Yugantar, the word is clearly associated with the Gadar movement. Be very careful. The Gadar movement, it also came up with a new publication named as Yugantar. Okay, so correct answer here is Yugantar Ashram. Be very much careful. Yugantar, the term, wherever you see the word Yugantar, this word will be associated directly or indirectly with the Gadar movement or the leaders of the Gadar movement. Okay, so correct answer here will be Yugantar Ashram. Next up is question number 4. When was the first walkout organized in the Legislative Council during the colonial period? Indian Legislative Councils they started from 1861, and slowly and gradually their participation was increased, their membership was increased, and more Indians were now being associated with the Executive Council. But this Legislative Council, the first walkout which was organized, it happened in 1901. Okay, so in 1901 the first walkout was organized. It was in response to a particular bill was which was being passed by veto by the the leader of the Legislative Council, the British officials. But the Indian members of the council they walked out in 1901, and this was the first walkout in the legislative history of our country, in the legislative councils of our country. Okay, next up is question number 5. Curzon Wiley was killed in London by. This was a very famous assassination which took place in London. Curzon Wiley, who was at that time the aide-de camp, the political aide-de camp of the Secretary of State for India, and he was assassinated in London in a particular meeting of India House. Option A, Rash Bihari Bose was the attacker. Option B, Ajit Singh. Option C, Madan Lal Dhingra, and option D, Khudiram Bose. All these they are very important and famous revolutionary freedom fighters of our country, and Madan Lal Dhingra is the correct answer. Madan Lal Dhingra was the person who went and assassinated Curzon Wiley in London, and after that he was trialed and executed in London itself. Okay, so Madan Lal Dhingra is the correct answer. He was also praised vehemently by all the different anti-colonialist governments or anti-colonialist organizations or leaders all throughout the world, and he was praised for the statement he made in the court when the judge asked him why did he commit this particular crime, or did he plead guilty or not guilty. He very directly said that yes, I am guilty of doing this assassination, but I am not guilty of any crime, because just like Britishers, they want to defend against the Germans who were then attacking the British islands or British lands. Similarly, I am also justified to attack Englishmen because they are illegally occupying my country. So these kinds of judgment, this kind of speech which was made by Madanlal Dhingra, it got very popular at that time, and it also inspired many other nationalists, not only in India but also in Ireland and other European countries as well. Okay. Question number 6. Of the following, who was not the member of the interim government in 1946? The first interim government which was formed after the Second World War was ended. The interim government was formed under the you can say the leadership of the viceroy of that time. The viceroy of that time was Lord Wavell, and he was the president, you can say, or he was the viceroy, and under him an interim government was formed under the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru, who we can say was like a prime minister, like who was second in command after Lord Wavell. So there were different members of this interim government. Who of the following was not the member, that we have to answer? Option A, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Option B, Jagjivan Ram. Option C, Baldev Singh. And option D, B.R. Ambedkar. Be very careful, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was not a part of the interim government which was set up before independence. Okay, so Vallabhbhai Patel, he was looking after the home affairs, and he was also looking after the information and broadcasting ministry, or you can say department, under the interim government. Jagjivan Ram was responsible for labor issues, labor welfare, and Baldev Singh was the first defense minister, you can say, or the defense department was under him. in the interim government. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, he got associated as the Minister for Law after the independence. Okay, so he was not part of the interim government in 1946. Correct answer here will be option number D. Next up is question number 7. The Rehnumai Mazda-e Sabha represented the spirit of reform among. The Rehnumai Mazda Sabha was a reform organizations for a particular community. Options are Anglo-Indians, option B Parsis, option C Muslims, and option D Hindus. This Rehnumai Mazda Sabha or RMS is very famous reform organization which works for the upliftment or empowerment of or reform in the community of Parsis. Okay, the Zoroastrian. So correct answer is option B. Dadabhai Nauroji, he was one of the stalwarts of this particular organization, and he was also a progressive, modern progressive, and he wanted to reform various ills or various problems in the Parsi society. So therefore, he came up with the Rehnumai Mazdan Sabha along with some other Parsi leaders. Next up is question number 8. Which among the following pairs is matched incorrectly? Now, incorrectly matched pair has to be answered. On one side, there is a name, there is a list of personalities: Dadabhai Nauroji, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Shishir Kumar Ghosh, and Gopal Krishna Gokhale. And on the other side, there are newspapers which are associated with them: Indian Mirror, Kesari, Amrita Bazar Patrika, and Sudharak. So we have to find out the pair which is incorrectly matched. Bal Gangadhar Tilak, he was very famously associated with Kesari, a newspaper which he published in Marathi, and especially during the home rule movement time, he was very much active, and through his newspaper Kesari he propagated his own ideas, nationalist ideas, extremist ideas, and he inspired a lot of Indian citizens or Indian people to stand against the Britishers. Option C, Shishir Kumar Ghosh, he is credited as being one of the first or being the pioneers of the newspaper industry in our country, and he came up with the Amrita Bazar Patrika, which he published from Kolkata. Okay, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, he came up with Sudharak. Sudharak is also very famous, you can say, journal or newspaper which was published by Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Indian Mirror was not published by Dadabhai Nauroji. Indian Mirror was started by Devendranath Tagore. Okay, and not Dadabhai Nauroji. So Indian Mirror is incorrectly matched with Dadabhai Nauroji. Indian Mirror has to be matched with Devendranath Tagore, who was also one of the first members from the Tagore family who went into the business of publishing magazines, journals, or newspapers. Option 8, correct answer is option A. Question number 8. Next is question number 9. So Devendranath Tagore started the Indian Mirror in early 1862 in Calcutta. Next is question number 9. Who among the following founded the several Vedanta societies in the West? Vedanta societies are still functioning all throughout the world and propagating the message of Vedanta. This Vedanta societies, they were founded by option A Hardayal, Lala Hardayal, who was associated with the Gadar movement also, Gopal Hari Deshmukh, Vivekanand, Swami Vivekanand, and Raja Ram Mohan Roy. The Vedanta, the philosophy of Vedanta, it got popularized after Ramakrishna Paramahans. He propagated this philosophy, and one of his most famous and important disciples is Swami Vivekanand. And Swami Vivekanand, he traveled all throughout the world, and he opened and inaugurated several Vedanta societies in different parts of the world, especially in North America, also in Europe and South America. He established the Vedanta societies. One of the first of the Vedanta societies was New York Vedanta Society, published by, organized by Swami Vivekanand. So correct answer is option C. Right, Swami Vivekanand is associated with the Vedanta movement. Most of the important developments related to the Vedanta movement in our country or throughout the world have been made by Swami Vivekanand or his mission, that is Ramakrishna Mission. This Ramakrishna Mission is also dedicated solely to the propagation of Vedanta philosophy. Okay. Next up is the last question of the day, and this question is about the first book which was written by Mahatma Gandhi. The first book which was written by Mahatma Gandhi was option A, Collected Works of Mahatma Gandhi, option B, Story of My Experiments with Truth, option C, Hind Swaraj, and option D, The Harijan. The correct answer has to be option C, the Hind Swaraj, because Mahatma Gandhi, he went into the business of reform or upliftment of the lower sections of society much later in his life, right? So the Harijan, a newspaper or a publication which was dedicated solely to the reform, that had to be made in the Indian society. It came up much later. So did the story of my experiments with truth. It also was published when he was under captivity during the later parts of the Indian freedom struggle. Correct answer here will be option C, Hind Swaraj. Hind Swaraj or Indian Home Rule is a book written by Gandhiji in 1909. Before he even came to India, he wrote this particular book and he expressed his views on Swaraj, modern civilization and mechanization. And this book was banned in 1910, next year. After 1 year, the book was banned in India by the British government as a seditious text. That this text was not in consonance with the policies of the British Indian government. Okay, so these are the 10 questions that we have discussed, my friends, today related to the Indian freedom struggle, and I hope that this series will help you with the revising all the important concepts related to the Indian freedom struggle part of the syllabus. Be very careful if you have not watched this entire series. The videos are not very long. In a short amount of time we are discussing these questions and we are discussing the reasons or the concepts behind them also. So be very regular with this particular series, and if you like the video and the series, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel also, and join the Telegram channel. There you will be able to download all these PDFs, the PDFs of these sessions, absolutely free of cost, without any charges, and you can use these PDFs as last time revision also when you are going to give the exam for the ESIC. A week before that, you go through all those PDFs and you once again revise all the questions and their answers, and this will help you a lot in the examination. Okay, so with this, I bid you all goodbye. Keep on learning, keep on growing. Jai Hind and Jai Bharat.